Good evening, I'm Ces Oreña-Drilon.
I'm Pauline Verzosa.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
The big stories tonight. The Banko Central tells e-wallets to take down their links to online gambling platforms in 2 days. But for senators, 48 hours is too long and want the unlinking to be done immediately.
Senator Ping Lacson introduces a new phrase to the so-called corruptionary, the dictionary of anomalous flood control projects. He bears the term ghost budget, wherein a project already completed is given funding over and over again.
And foreign security experts believe that a high-intensity conflict between China and the United States and its allies is just a matter of time. And the Indo-Pacific region, where the Philippines belongs to, could possibly be a key battleground.
We want to give time to take down those in-app links and icons to the online gambling sites.
Ba't kinakalampan ng 48 hours? Eh sabi nga na dito, isang pindot lang yan, tapos na, wala na yung apps na yan.
Let us not naman fry people.
Beginning Sunday, there should be no more links and icons to online gambling sites in e-wallet apps. In the Senate Games and Amusement Committee hearing earlier, the Banko Central ng Pilipinas ordered mobile wallet companies to do this within 48 hours. Maya has committed to comply and said their update will be implemented in line with the BSP's guidance. It assured customers that their accounts and transactions remain secure and fully operational. GCash is also taking note of the central bank's ultimatum, promising to immediately enforce the necessary changes as soon as they receive the official directive. But senators believe that takedown should be prompt.
Eh ba't kinakalampan ng 48 hours? Eh sabi nga na dito, isang pindot lang yan, tapos na, wala na yung apps na yan. Ba't kinakailangan palugit para marami pang pwedeng tumaya? Para meron pang mga kukuha ng porsyento.
We heard from ASEC Paraiso a while ago that they can do it right away. I just don't get it, Mr. Chairman. Forgive me, Your Honors, my dear colleagues. It is not acceptable yung answer bakit kailangan ng 48 hours. We wanted to protect the public eh. Namamatay na nga yung mga tao eh. Numbers don't lie. These facts, these reports, ang dami pang hindi nare-report, Mr. Chairman. Kausap ko lang yung isang governor sa isang probinsya dito sa Pilipinas. Sabi niya, halos araw-araw may nagpapakamatay dito, pare. Bakit di natin ma-stop? Again, Mr. Chairman, I'm really sorry. It is not acceptable yung binibigay na sagot kung bakit hindi natin may sara ngayon.
The BSP explains there should be time not just to unlink from online gambling platforms, but to give users a chance to withdraw their money.
We want to give time to the BSP supervised institutions to take down those in-app links and icons to the online gambling sites. The other reason, Your Honor, is so that we will also provide time for the customers, for the consumers, to withdraw their funds from the online gaming account once they learn that we are already removing the links from the BSI mobile payment applications and websites, Mr. Chair. So within that time, for consumers who may want to take their money out from their online gambling accounts, they may do so.
Sunday morning, hindi ko na makita yung game sa mga e-wallets.
Apo, wala na.
Pag may nakita po ako, i-contempt kita. Huwag mo ninyo biro-biroin ang komite na ito. We have a problem. We have a crisis. Hindi po ito basta-basta. We are facing crisis, Mr. BSP, sir.
Meantime, Senator Rodante Marcoleta questioned his colleagues for putting the blame on e-wallets and the BSP. He insists the buck stops with the Philippine Amusement and Gaming Corporation or PAGCOR.
Ang PAGCOR po ang merong regulatory powers dito eh. Bakit hindi sila yung mauna na mag-regulate? Bakit po yung GCash ang dinidiin natin? Parang nakikita ko, we're all barking on the wrong tree. I just made the suggestion this morning, but I did not expect na sila yung gigisahin natin. Hindi po sila yung operator eh.
But they are the conduit.
I was the one who suggested.
Hindi po pwede magtaya yung mga bata kung wala yung...
Kaya nga po, ang sinasabi ko, i-suspend nila. Tapos na yun. But let us not naman fry people.
For its part, PAGCOR says they have sufficient regulations. But the government-owned and controlled corporation admits the biggest problem is illegal operators.
Ang online gaming ay nare-regulate at isang valuable source of income for nation building. Sa aming opinyon, sa halip na tuluyang ipagbawal, mas makabubuting magpatupad tayo ng malinaw, mahigpit at responsableng regulasyon.
Wala kang pakialam, kay malugi ho tayo because of the fact na yung social ills right now outweighs doon sa benefits. Nakikiusap po kayo ngayon na kung kami lang tatanungin kung pwede kami magdesisyon, iba na ho lahat ng online gambling whether legal or illegal. Kaya nga ho tayo na nag-usap-usap. Kung gusto po namin, maglatag kayo ng konkretong solusyon.
In other news, Malacanang has rejected the offer of Baguio City Mayor Benjamin Magalong to lead the investigation into alleged corruption in government's flood control projects. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro says there is no need to designate a lead investigator as the chief executive himself has laid out a system to look into the allegations. Castro, however, urged Mayor Magalong to directly submit the information he has to the president. Magalong has alleged that at least 67 congressmen were involved in flood control kickbacks. Castro also challenged Magalong to name these officials.
Kung ano man po ay maitutulong ni Mayor Magalong, mas maganda po na ito'y mailahad niya sa Pangulo at hindi naman po siguro kinakailangan pang magkaroon ng isang magli-lead sa probe dahil nga may mekanismo na po at sistema na ibinigay ang ating Pangulo.
Castro reiterated that the investigation and flood control projects will not be a witch hunt and that no one will be reprimanded or charged without evidence. Meanwhile, in an interview with Ted Filon and DJ Chacha, Magalong said more people have approached him with information about alleged corruption in government.
Marami na rin nakikipag-ugnayan sa akin para magbigay ng information. Meron na rin silang gustong ipadalang mga dokumento. Meron na rin mga nakukuhang mga dokumento na mga digital copies na talagang very discreetly yung pagkapadala nila sa akin. Meron mga binanggit na mga figures. So, all of these are actually leads lang. We consider them as leads. Hindi pa ito ebidensya.
Opo.
Kailangan pa talaga kailangan pa ng evaluation. Pero ako na nagsasabi na very credible.
And it seems that Senator Panfilo Lacson has uncovered a new scheme on how money for government projects is siphoned off by corrupt officials. He revealed this today in an interview with our sister program, Storycon.
Meron kami natuklasan na parang pabaliktad na ghost. Yung proyekto na andyan na, yari na, hindi naman nabago, pinondohan sa isang budget year, yung pa rin yung proyekto, tapos na rin, hindi naman ginalaw, napondo nung sa susunod na budget year. So pabaliktad na ghost yun. Ghost budget naman yun, hindi ghost project. Hindi na yung sa quadruple or triple or lumala yung mga amount, pati yung scheme para naging talamak na. No? Marami kami natutunan. Alam mo, hindi na umobra, hindi namin makita sa dictionary yung, ito patigim ito, hindi na namin makita sa dictionary kung ano yung mga term na natutunan namin. Kaya hinanap na namin sa corruptionary.
Senator Lacson says all these information will be in a privileged speech, which he will deliver soon, and he promises to provide testimonials and even drone shots of projects that are allegedly anomalous.
Meantime, the Commission on Elections, or COMELEC, is planning to investigate all politicians who receive campaign donations from government contractors. According to COMELEC Chairman George Garcia, this violates the election code. Senate President Cheese Escudero earlier admitted that one of the contractors named by President Bongbong Marcos had been his campaign donor. Escudero said Centerways Construction did donate 30 million pesos to his 2022 election campaign, but he insists that he never helped the firm corner state contracts.
Pero maganda rin, marinig natin yung kabuuang explanation ni Senate President. Maaari kasi yung isang tao, korporasyon, may negosyo, pero ang katanungan, baka naman hindi kasi doon ang negosyo sa mismong opisina na yon o doon sa tinakbuhan ng kandidato. Tingnan natin yung kabuuan kasi nga ayaw nating i-preempt yung magiging action ng kahit na sino, depensa ng kahit na nino. Ang importante po, maliwanag na may prohibition sa mga donations at contribution.
And tonight, we have one of the few people who blew the whistle on supposedly anomalous flood control projects and other infrastructure projects even before the president's SONA. So we welcome to the Big Story, Baguio City Mayor Benjamin Magalong. Good evening, Mayor, and welcome to the Big Story.
Good evening, Seth. Good evening, Shawn Yao and Pauline, and to our viewers. Thank you for having me.
Well, Malacanang has respectfully declined your offer to lead the probe. Ano pong sagot nyo?
Seth, hindi naman ako nagpupumilit eh. Para naman ako nagmamakaawa sa kanila. Hindi naman ako nagpumilit. Nag-volunteer lang ako sa kasakaling wala sila. Kasi wala silang makita pa. Unang-una, just would like to emphasize that the investigation should be conducted by a third party, an independent body. That is actually the intent. Yun ang gusto kong ipahiwatig sa kanila. Hindi yung mismong mga akusado, kaya yung mga kung sino yung mga involved, sila rin na mag-iimbestiga sa sarili nila. Kumbaga, it's a question of moral ascendancy. Para mong sinabihan yung kriminal na, okay, sige, imbestiga mo na yung sarili mo, tapos kumuha ka na rin ng mga ebidensya, tapos pailan mo na rin yung kaso mo. Ganun ang nangyari. Hindi naman pwedeng ganun. Kaya hindi po ako nagpupumilit. Nag-volunteer lang po ako.
All right. Well, the president has given the task to DepDev or NEDA to do an audit. And also, there has been an offer for you to talk to the president directly. Has there been anyone who has reached out to you from Malacanang, or will you also do your own part in seeking perhaps an audience with President Marcos?
Well, wala naman dumating sa akin na information or any communication whatsoever that I need to talk to the president. Wala. Pinarating lang sa akin yan kanina ng kaibigan ko na sinabi niya na may pahayag daw si Yusek Castro. So wala po akong alam at wala pa akong direct na communication po kay Presidente. But nonetheless, kung sakasakali ang gagawin ko lang naman is i-consolidate ko lang naman yung mga na-gather ko, na-collect ko ng mga dokumento, pati na rin yung mga, isa-summarize ko lang yung mga testimony ng mga ibang mga sources natin ng information. These are reliable sources. Para at least merong briefer, sort of a briefer. And then probably I can go directly to the investigating body, kung sino man ang dinesignate na investigating body, o kaya kung sinasabi nga nila na ang gagawa ng kasi kailangan investigating body ang pagbibigyan mo para ma-appreciate nila, ma-exploit nila yung ebidensya. Kung DepDev, ang kayang gawin ng DepDev is to conduct some sort of an audit, a study, pero they're not investigators. So, paano nila ma-exploit yung mga dokumento? Kasi kailangan ng document exploitation doon.
Right. So, by your statements earlier, does this mean you're not willing to go to Congress because well, there'll be a biased investigating body?
Alam mo, Ces, kung tinawag ako ng Congress, pupunta ako. I'll go there.
But would you be comfortable, Mayor, na ibulgar doon and i-lay down lahat ng ebidensyang nakalap mo, yung mga anonymous sources na lumapit sa iyo at nagbigay ng mga ebidensya? Would you be comfortable leaving it there, or even with the OP for that matter? Kampante ba kayo doon?
Yes, alam mo, Pauline, Sonia, ilang beses na ako humarap dyan sa Kongreso na yan during congressional hearings. I was actually one of the primary witnesses or main witnesses sa mga series of congressional hearings. So hindi naman ako natatak. Pan lang sila. Wag lang nila, sabi ko nga, ulit-ulit ko, wag lang nila akong tratuhin na akusado dito. I'm not the accused. Tratuhin nila akong resource person.
But the challenge is for you to name names. And you said that you have 67, is that correct? Name names and have evidence substantiating your accusations against these people.
Seth, I just would like to clarify, state with clarity. I did not mention about the 67. It was Senator Lacson. And knowing Senator Lacson, it was probably provided to him by a very reliable source. Hindi basta-basta magsasalita si Senator Lacson. Hindi credible yung source niya dyan.
Well, Mayor, you did mention that once the investigation starts, the amount of information will be overwhelming because even people within DPWH and some contractors are willing to expose the corruption that is ongoing. Pero kayo, Mayor, up to where na ba o hanggang saan na sila yung mga na-expose nila, nasabi nila sa inyo? And are they willing to testify and turn that into an affidavit?
Well, yan ang kwan din. Isa rin sa mga challenges na hinaharap ng isang investigator, how to convince primary witnesses to really testify and reduce their testimonies into writing. Isa rin sa mga challenge. Kaya kailangan yan kung talaga investigator because part of the tradecraft yan. And at the same time, alam mo, pag naumpisan na yan, investigation, and based on my own personal experience when we were doing the investigation on the NIA anomaly sometime in 2013, and no less than President Noynoy appointed me as the lead investigator. Noong umpisa, isa lang lugar. Pinapacheck lang niya sa amin yung sa Las Nieves, Agusan Norte. Pero alam niya, nung ongoing na yan, after the second month, bigla nang bumaha yung opisina namin ng napakaraming informasyon at napakaraming dokumento. Including personnel sa NIA, pati na rin yung mga contractor, pati na rin yung mga community leaders. Bigla nang nagsulputan na, nagbigay na ng kanilang mga na-gather na mga ebidensya. Kaya yung ganyan, basta na umpisa niyan, babaha talaga yan. That's why it requires a well-organized investigation. Hindi pwedeng kung sino-sino na. Kung hindi sanay sa investigation, ma-overwhelm sila.
Pero sino nga, Mayor? Sino yung dapat mag-imbestiga?
Yes, what institution do you...
Or dapat ba private sector body, ganon? Kasi kung sa gobyerno lang din, di kaya ba, yung fear na, baka matimbrehan yung mga sangkot, ganon, baka maunahan, baka mawala na lang yung mga ebidensya, mabaon sa limot.
Good question, Good question, good point. But, you have to trust anyone. You have to simply trust a credible institution. NBI is one, CIDG is one, or the Philippine National is one. Nung kami, CIDG and NBI lang yung nag-conduct na investigation. And we were able to, file cases. Yun lang, pagkatiwalaan mo lang yan. Kasi hindi naman pwedeng basta-basta mahawakan yan, lalo-lalo na kung they receive direct orders coming from the President.
So are you pessimistic about the outcome of what the House is doing? It's a tri-committee. And well, from what we've seen, sa umpisa pa lang medyo nag-aaway na nga sila sa procedure, etc. And well, we know how they conduct hearings. It really takes long for them to finish the job.
Says, I just would like to be very candid, just sagot ko dyan, I'm not very optimistic. And I don't trust the way they're doing it. Unang-una, kaya nga matagal kasi nga hindi naman investigation yung ginagawa nila, grandstanding yung ginagawa nila. Inumpisa na kagad, defensive na kagad sila. Unang-una, pera ng taong bayan yan. Bakit hindi kayo transparent? Bakit nagiging defensive kagad sila? Nagtatakipan kagad sila? Ulitin ko, pera ho ng bayan yan. Kailangan transparent sila.
And yet you're willing to go before them.
Yes, definitely.
Well, Mayor, kaninang hapon sa StoryCon, nabanggit ni Senator Lacson, aside from the term ghost budget, he also mentioned the term passing through. At sabi daw niya, alam niyo po ang ibig sabihin daw nun, Mayor. Can you enlighten us?
Oo nga, part na nga lang idodonate ko nga yan sa kanyang corruptionary. Meron pa ng mga parking fee. Ganito yan kasi, unang-una, ang sistema niyan is assuming na yung pera, let us say the budget will be coming from the APRO. When you say APRO, yung Committee Appropriations. Alam nila yan. Hindi naman sila magsisinungaling dyan unless nagtatakipan sila. Alam nila yan. Ang trabaho ng winning implementing agency is ipabid, Pero iklaklaro na nila na ang ibabalik sa APRO, 25%. Tapos, kung saan gagawin yung project, yung distrito, no? Yun na yun, yung pass-through na tinatawag o parking fee. Ang parking fee na yan, bibigay nila doon sa congressman in the amount of 55% or 10% of the budget ng fund, yung cost ng project. 3% goes to the Bids and Awards Committee. 3% goes to the losing bidders. Actually, yung losing bidders yun. Kasi kung ano naman yun, rigged bid yun eh. Rigged bid yun. So, let us say, 5 silang bidders, tapos isa yung nanalo, yung 4, sasabihin ng winning bidder, ito na yung 3% nyo, hati-hati na kayo lahat. Another is yung 1% yung material testing, na kaya maski na bumabagsak yung materials, pasado pa rin. Kasi dyan sa sheet piles na yan, meron 2 klase. Meron yung cold form at yung mga hot roll. Ang talagang matibay dyan, yung hot roll. Pero ang ginagawa nila, maski na hot roll yung nakalagay sa technical study, pero ang gagawin cold form ang gagamitin dahil mas mura. At hindi naman talaga ganun katibay. Pero yun ang gusto nila, cold form. Kasi per kilo ang cost niyan eh. Alam niyo ba kung magkano talagang standard na ang presyo ng sheet pile na 12 meters at 556 kilograms per sheet? Ang presyo niyan is about ang cold form nasa 34 pesos per kilogram. Tapos ipapasa ng supplier ng mga 39 pesos. Sa sa hot roll, ang presyo niyan is 50. Ipapasa niya yan, mga 55. Pero alam mo ba kung anong lalabas sa dated unit price analysis? Aabot siya ng mga, sa cold form, umaabot siya ng mga 72 hanggang 90. Sa hot roll, umaabot siya ng 100 to 120 to 136. Kaya kita mo na lang, per kilogram. So doon pa lang sa sheet pile, kumikita na kagad sila. No? Tapos meron pa yung 1% para sa mga inspectors. Tapos may 7% na VAT, tapos 1% na insurance. Yun lang ang legitimate. Yung 8% na yun. The rest are, alam mo na, under the table arrangement lahat yun. Ang masama nito, pag nagkakaso, ang pipirma, ang contractor at yung DPWH. Pag nagkakaso, sila lang kakasuhan. Pero yung hindi pumirma, na pinakamalaki pa yung porsyento, hindi makukulong. Dahil walang ebidensya laban sa kanya. Now, if you look at the percentages that I mentioned, that's about 58%. So 42% na lang ang naiwan. Doon sa 42%, pagkakakitaan pa ng kanyan, kailangan mag-generate ng profit yung contractor. Assuming na 12% lang ang kukuha niya, dahil naawa na siya. Kasi usually, ang isang contractor, pag tinanong mo, ano dapat ang profit mo to be financially viable? Yung project. Dapat mga 20 to 25% or 30%. Pero naawa siya 12% na lang. So 30% lang maiwan. Sabi ko, how can you execute a project with just 30% of the total cost? Napakahirap nga, Mayor. Sabi niya, kasi naman yung mga binigay namin porsyento, hindi naman kasama yun sa program of work. Anong gagawin niyo? Substandards here namin.
Pero under the table arrangement, like you said, Mayor, let's focus on that. How can we pin the right people, no? Pag lahat ng mga arrangements under the table, hindi nag-a-appear yung mga signatures nila, mga pirma nila sa mga papeles, mga dokumento, how then can we be assured, no, na makukuha talaga yung mga talagang salarin and everybody involved, hindi lang yung mga contractors? I think Ces wants to add something.
No, and exactly we know what happens to whistleblowers. Nababaliktad sila eh. Kaya, di ba? Parang baka sila pa yung makulong.
Good question. Good question. Ang sagot ko naman dyan is, kaya nga investigador dapat ang mag-imbestiga kasi tradecraft yan eh. Tradecraft. Kaya hindi ko na ayoko na lang I don't want to elaborate on it, but it's part of the tradecraft.
But, and again, you know about all this because you've been offered to have all these commissions and 30% and all that, right? You know about it because you have
in several occasions, I was also offered.
And?
I declined. Yung isa, nag-offer sa akin ng 38 million. Pinapa-withdraw na yung 30 million sa magkita na raw kami sa Clark. And that was during the 2022 election. Just 3 months before the election, isipin mo na 30 million gusto i-advance sa'yo. Very tempting. Pero pinatawag ko yung contractor. Pinagalitan ko doon sa opisina. Tapos binigyan ko agad ng instruction yung city administrator na tanggalin siya na sa list of bidders. Meron din pumunta sa akin na nag-o-offer ng pass-through. Pass-through naman. 6%. No? 6% pass-through. Parking fee, 6%. Tapos in-explain niya sa akin na ibabalik yung 28%. Tapos meron din, ang dami niya sinabi sa akin na mga figures din. Ito naman yung roadside barrier. Ito yung sa contract.
Yes.
Contract price nito is 121,330 when in fact, ang totoong presyo lang nito sa market survey is just 220,000 pesos per meter. Per meter. Napakaraming hundreds of kilometers ang nilagyan sa buong Pilipinas.
So your preference, once again, just to summarize, is the CIDG under, of course, the PNP, General Torre, and NBI.
Yes.
Not the House of Representatives.
Kaya nila yan.
Otherwise, walang mangyayari.
You said it, Seth.
No, I'm asking you. No, it's a question. Walang mangyayari?
Wala talagang mangyayari. Maniwala ka sa akin. Seth, gusto mo magpustahan tayo?
Wag na lang, Mayor. But I know you've been talking about this. That's why inoperatan kayo na hindi kayo manalo pero nanalo kayo. And now, may mission kayo because, you have to finish this.
Yes. There should be an end game. Yun lang ang doon. Nagkaroon ng pronouncement. Nagsalita si Presidente, very strongly worded na those words are, were piercing words. Mahiya kayo. So there should be an end game. At I'm pretty sure na meron strategy si Presidente. Marami naman siya kinukonsulta. Kaya
may kumpiyansa kayo kay Presidente. Sorry to cut you off kasi we're running out of time, but do you have confidence in him to carry this through, to finish the job?
I think so. Ako, nararamdaman ko. Dahil I remember 2018 nung nag-usap kami, tinanong ko sa kanya, Sir, anong motivation niyo po? Sabi niya, I want to redeem the Marcos name. So ito na siguro yun. For the next 3 years, yan ang gagawin niya.
All right. With that, we thank you so much for your time and looking forward to your testimony before the House of Congress where you feel nothing will happen. Thank you so much. That was Baguio City Mayor Benji Magalong.
We're going to take a quick break, but coming up, China turns the tables on the Philippines and blames our Coast Guard for the sea incident on Monday that resulted in 2 Beijing vessels slamming against each other. That and more stories when we return. Keep it here at One News.
Welcome back to the big story. Chinese state media has released a so-called video expose showing dangerous maneuvers by the Philippine Coast Guard's vessel in Scarborough Shoal last Monday. In the 26-second video, the PCG could be seen speeding in front of a Chinese Coast Guard ship, despite repeated warnings from Beijing to stand down. The video was allegedly shot moments before a Chinese Navy warship and its sister ship from CCG chased the PCG. That ended in a collision between the 2 Chinese ships, which an unconfirmed report said claimed 2 lives. Maritime affairs expert Jay Batongbakal called the expose a bluff, saying China still owes the Philippine Coast Guard and Navy a lot. That's for ramming and attacking Filipino vessels with water cannons on several occasions.
They owe us for a couple of Navy ships, Navy vessels. Yung Reef, di ba? Tapos, all the damage to all our ships from their water cannons. So they owe us also. Kung sakaling ipipilit niya yan, they'll have to go to court and then they'll have to prove who actually has sovereignty over Scarborough. Di hamak na mas marami tayong ebidensya kaysa sa kanila.
Philippine Navy spokesperson for the West Philippine Sea, Roy Vincent Trinidad, says China should have learned its lesson from the collision. He added Beijing should protect their personnel and not use them as bait.
Meanwhile, defense experts are warning of a potential high-intensity conflict with China within the next 5 years. A massive $150 billion defense spending package is being directed entirely to this region to purchase advanced aircraft and munitions that could be critical in such a conflict. Mobile journalist Merimon Reyes with the report.
The message from Washington was that the Indo-Pacific is now America's top military priority. That's according to defense experts from the Heritage Foundation, a prominent conservative think tank that advises on U.S. national security policy, who sounded the alarm about rising tensions with China. In fact, they believe conflict could be imminent.
We think it is a very real possibility that we could be engaged in high-intensity conflict with China within the next 5 years. And we're not sure we can win. We don't think we're going to lose, but we're not guaranteed that we're going to win that fight.
This stark assessment comes as the U.S. Congress approves a massive $150 billion defense package, with every dollar going to Indo-Pacific Command, under which the Philippines falls. That leaves other regions like EUCOM, or the European Command, and CENTCOM, which is short for Central Command and oversees the Middle East, without additional funding, even with war still raging in those two theaters.
The $150 billion in the One Big Beautiful Bill, only one region was mentioned, the Indo-Pacific. There was no money in there for EUCOM, there was no money in there for CENTCOM. It's all coming here to Indo-PACOM. And very deliberately, the stuff being bought is things that are relevant to deterring China here in the Indo-Pacific. So,
Heritage Foundation analysts who closely track Pentagon spending and strategic priorities says this represents an unprecedented shift in American military focus. But where will the money go? Wilson Beaver, senior policy advisor for defense budgeting at Heritage, says they are recommending to the U.S. Congress to buy assets specifically designed for potential Indo-Pacific combat scenarios, like advanced aircraft and precision-guided munitions that would be critical in any conflict with China.
it's not, tanks, which are very useful in Europe, less so here. It's aircraft, especially F-35s and F-15EXs. It's massive amounts of munitions, because we've all recognized that we don't have enough precision-guided munitions that are relevant to combat in the Indo-Pacific. That's AMRAAMs, LRASMs, JASMs, all the things that we would need if there were a conflict out here.
The two American defense experts were in Manila this week to speak at a forum hosted by the Strat-based Institute. They also say they came to ask military officials and local policy advisors what else the Philippines needed to counter China in the meantime. In turn, Beaver pointed out that 2 decades focused on Middle East desert warfare have also left U.S. forces needing more extensive jungle combat preparation.
Similarly with the Philippines, right? Our guys have been in the desert for the past 20 years, and we don't have that many units that are familiar with jungle warfare. Doing cross-training with Philippine counterparts here on jungle warfare would be extremely beneficial to American troops. I know we do some already, but doing a lot more would be helpful.
Just the day before the forum, the urgency of America's Indo-Pacific pivot was underscored near Scarborough Shoal. That's when a Chinese warship crashed into its own Coast Guard vessel while aggressively pursuing a Philippine Coast Guard boat that was delivering supplies to Filipino fishermen. The Department of National Defense called it an atrocious and inane conduct from China. With such volatile confrontations in Philippine EEZ, that massive U.S. defense buildup may prove more crucial and more imminent than anyone anticipated. Mobile journalist Merimon Reyes, we are One News.
In other news, Senate President Cheese Escudero and the office of Senator Robin Padilla have directed a probe into reports of marijuana use by a Senate staff member inside the upper chamber. This is after 2 separate complaints to the office of the Sergeant-at-Arms concerning an unusual odor coming from the ladies' comfort room near one of the Senate's extension offices. On Tuesday, August 12, a staff member from Senator Ping Lacson's office reported that the smell resembled that of marijuana. The report noted that the only person inside the restroom at the time was identified as Nadia Montenegro, a political affairs officer in Senator Padilla's office. But when the guard on duty approached Montenegro, she said she had just been using vape. Still, Lacson insists that there should have been an investigation on the matter.
Hindi maganda talaga. Isipin mo, Senado yun eh. Tapos mga amoy parang Amsterdam. Identified naman kung sino yun. Alam ng OSA eh. Alam ng mga gwardiya doon sa Senate kasi sila nakakita eh.
We're going to be pausing for another quick breather, but when we return, Let's talk about a more progressive and even scientific way of solving the country's flooding problem. Sustainability is up next. Keep it here on One News.
Story. Welcome back to the big story. Billions of taxpayers' money down the drain. Outrage at corruption-ridden flood control projects is sweeping the country. But is infrastructure the only solution to mitigating floods which have worsened due to climate change? Tonight, we tackle a more integrated, nature and science-based approach to the problem of flooding. We will be talking to Dr. Victor Cruz, an expert on watershed management and climate change. He's part of the National Academy of Science and Technology, or NAST, the government's highest advisory body on S&T. Dr. Cruz, a professor emeritus at the University of the Philippines, Los Baños, will talk to us about the scientific approach to the vulnerabilities caused by climate change that could save us billions of pesos. Welcome to Sustainability. And we have with us via Zoom Dr. Victor Cruz. Good evening, Professor, and welcome to the big story.
Good evening, Ces. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Yes, Doc. What do you make of the goings on now? The nation is focused on all these infrastructure projects costing hundreds of billions of pesos. When infrastructure is not the only solution to this problem.
Yeah, that's right. There's a group of actions or solutions that we may consider in order to address the problems of flooding, and in fact of some other similar climate-related risks. We can resort to what we call nature-based solutions. And if we nature-based solutions, if we go by the definition of it, well, before that, we all know that, yes, the Philippines is at risk, and for several years now, we are at the top of the list. And it's not something to be proud of, but something to be very concerned about, because it's really taking a lot of toll, not only on our economy, but also on the quality of life of Filipinos. So it's something that we must really take very seriously, and that flooding, is one of those risks that are really causing a lot of troubles to us. As I was saying, nature-based solution, this refers to actions that actually protect and then sustainably manage and restore natural or modified ecosystems, or natural and modified systems, that include forests, lakes, and rivers, that includes even agricultural ecosystems and urban ecosystems, together with the whole of the watersheds, So when we say nature-based solutions, it actually refers to how we manage, to how we restore, to how we protect this natural and modified system. The reason why we're having all the problems, that we have now, it's not only because we have climate change. It's not only because we are experiencing more, intense typhoons and extreme rainfall events, but it's really because a lot of our natural ecosystems are broken, So may problema kasi sila, Like, for instance, if we talk about the forests, our forests are really degraded. It's good thing that we have, programs now like national greening programs to restore and to put back, the forests where they should be, because a lot of the problems related to flooding are, can be mitigated, not really completely controlled, but it can be mitigated, it can be minimized when we have a lot of forests. So that's fixing nature, and that is an example of nature-based solutions.
I've listened to some of your lectures, and may you, in one slide, we can see the solution or how to address the problem in a more holistic fashion. Mas mura it won't cost hundreds of billions, Dr. Cruz, right?
Yeah,
Can we save
it's
money if we be more scientific about our approach rather than puro mga retainment walls, di ba? That really nasisira lang.
Yeah, right. But we're not discounting the the effectiveness of the gray solutions or the infrastructure solutions. No, we say that there is a right time and the right condition where these infrastructures are needed. Yun namang mga nature-based solutions, hindi naman yan ang the complete solutions to our flood flood problem.
So walk us through the ridge to reef watershed ecosystem management.
Right.
That you advocate.
What you see in this slide actually, is a watershed. And this watershed, you can see, inside of it, interconnected ecosystems. You have the forest ecosystems, agroforestry, agricultural ecosystems, urban ecosystems, coastal, and then you have lakes and rivers, and then grassland ecosystems, interconnected all the way to the marine ecosystems, which is not part of the watershed, but it's still part of what we call the ridge to reef, unit. Now, what I was saying is that, because many of these ecosystems are broken, we are having problems with, with flooding, with landslides, with drought. Now, you see here, for instance, if the forests, which is located at the top of the watershed, if these are degraded, if we don't have enough forest, what happens is that when rain comes down, most of the rain will just flow over land because the soil is not in a condition where it can absorb water, so that so that this rainwater can be stored instead underground, and released gradually to the rivers, especially during summertime when we don't have rain. But what happens is that when you take away all the forest, the soil becomes degraded, it becomes compacted and not able to absorb a lot of rain when it rains. And hence, most of the rain will just flow on the surface, and then they will travel so fast and they will converge, in the river systems. And that, in the river systems, which is very limited also in its capacity to convey and to hold water, they will just overflow because there's just too much water, coming down through it. Because that happens because the forest is broken, and then you go down, downstream, and you see, agriculture, which are not properly managed. They can also contribute flooding together with, grasslands. If you have grasslands, and then you have grasslands that are not protected and then periodically burnt, that makes the soil so hard and so compacted. Again, rain will not go through it. It will just flow over land. And then you go down, to the urban areas where you have all these impervious layers, impervious surfaces, that's all around, with little open spaces, green spaces, where water can just seep through whenever it rains. So all the water are on the surface. So what happens, even with just little rainfall, especially in the urban areas, what happens is that water can easily accumulate on the surface. And you add to that, when you have insufficient drainage systems, then there you go, you have big flood problems. So it's really about fixing, the broken ecosystems, that we have in the watershed, so that we can, somehow, reduce the flood risk,
What's interesting is a few weeks ago during the heavy rains, Dr. Mahar Lagmay was showing us his map also, and it pretty much is a different map, but it shows kind of the same thing about how we built even over like natural waterways that drain out water and all of that. But I saw your proposal, Dr. Cruz, and you're suggesting that from the get-go, our comprehensive land use plan is kind of wrong to begin with. I guess my question is there some low-hanging fruit that we can immediately grasp, to make some changes that will have an effect, since, it's very tangled, multi-stakeholder, a lot of agencies involved in the long term?
Well, I consider the what do you call this? I consider the updating of the comprehensive land use plan as a low-hanging fruit, you know. Why? Because there is already, a legal basis for that, you know. The Department of Human Settlement and Urban Development, they already have that in their guidebook, eh. Nasa guidebook na yun, eh. You know, prescribing to the local government units to use the Rich Reef approach and the watershed as the unit for planning, for land use planning. And when they do that properly, what happens is that, you know, they do the planning within the context of what will protect the watershed, what will protect the different ecosystems and watershed, so that they continue to deliver the services that are expected of them, you know, and not give us the services, you know, that are contrary to you know, like for instance, security against flood. You know, when the system is broken, you know, just gives us the flood instead. You know, we don't have security. So it's a low-hanging fruit, really. You know, a lot of LGUs, a lot of local government units are in the process, or are nearly, you know, in the process of updating their comprehensive land use plan. If they do that, and if they use actually their comprehensive land use plan, if they do it right, you know, to guide them in their development pursuits, you know, that can help them.
Why?
You know?
Because there's no money in it? What's the...
Well,
I don't mean
no.
to be facetious, but why
No.
are they not following it?
They
Hindi
are-
nila
well,
alam or paano?
Yeah, we had a study actually in 2017, and what we found out is that there's really, you know, not enough understanding and appreciation of how to really do it, you know, using the Rich Reef approach and using the watershed approach. So even if this would, for instance, is doing a lot of capacity building and technical assistance to local government units, those are not really enough. No, I think there is really so much that we need to do to give them the expertise and the competence to be able to do it. Plus, also, you know, build the capacity of those who are trying to provide them the technical assistance. Kasi meron namang mga technical services providers, no, that can actually help them. But even them, they also need capacity building, you know, on how to do it right. Yeah.
Doc, kinoconsult ba kayo ng DPWH? Quick follow-up lang. You know, pag gumagawa sila ng infra projects, kapag nag-award sila ng mga bids for infra, kasi, I mean, technically, you're both part of the government. So, if they don't avail of your service or your consultation, parang medyo weird, di ba?
Well, yeah, no, sorry. Hindi pa. I haven't been consulted, you know, but we have tried to reach out to them. We do a lot of planning. We're helping, for instance, a few local government units, you know, update their comprehensive land use plan and their provincial development physical framework plan. But we're not very successful in trying to reach out to them. For some reason, you know, it's difficult to actually, reach out to them and, you know, and convince them, you know, can we do something together here? You know, we do a lot of river basin master planning, for instance, and watershed management planning, which is basic to Reach to Reef approach. You know, and our experience is that it's difficult to reach out to them for some reason. I don't know why, but yeah, it's something that we really need to motivate and persuade yung mga government agencies natin, you know, to come together and work. You know.
Yes, Dr. Cruz. Yeah, I also wanted to point out that maybe a part of the solution is also having that change in mindset. And, you know, instead of thinking short term, we need to think long term in terms of climate resilience. And I'm curious, throughout the years, I mean, have we done anything right in managing floods? Kahit dun man lang, Doc.
Yeah, but I think, you know, we do have cases now of successful project. I just don't have it at the top of my head right now. You know, but I'm sure we do. No, meron naman siguro kahit na konti, no. But I think
walang masabi siguro. Walang maalala.
Matagal na yung last.
I'd like to point out also, there has to be more coordination. I remember you said, because we're subdivided in a way politically, no? Yung it's
right.
Yung region 1 to 15 and so forth. But it should be according to how the ridge to reef, how we are interconnected. Para may yung planning, because one city affects the other.
Please, to add to that,
Okay.
Doc, before you answer,
Elaborate,
tama,
oo.
kasi si Secretary Bonoan said, yung example, yung flood master plan natin, it's not actually per region, but it's per, if I'm not mistaken, river basin yung ginamit niya na term. So we have like major river basins and they're planned around that. Would that be a step in the right direction?
Oo nga, parang ang gulo eh.
O, pero parang 50 years old na rin yung plan, according to Secretary.
Right, it is actually, no? Ang flood kasi is a process that takes place within the boundary of a watershed or river basin. By the way, yung river basin and watershed, pareho lang yun eh, no? Yung river basin is just, these are large watersheds with area of more than 100,000 hectares.
Maganda yung watershed.
Yeah. Anyway, so yung flood kasi, it's a process that takes place within the boundary of a watershed. No? Yung flooding in one watershed does not affect the other watershed, no? Unless they share a common floodplain. Meron ganon, no? Meron ganon. But that is the right approach, really. If you want to address flooding, you look at the watershed and see, how that is being produced in that watershed. Kasi
So
hindi
it can be shared by several provinces, several cities, etc.
Yes. Oo. Kasi may mga malalaking watershed. So yung river basin na sinasabi, no? Malalaki yan eh. Minsan, ang probinsya niyan, 10, 12. Just like in Cagayan River Basin, napakalaki niyan. 12 ata ang probinsya nagsishare dyan. And 3 or 4 regions ang nagsishare, no? Of course, hindi naman halos pare-pareho ng lakihan. But that is the difficulty din eh. No? That is a challenge din. Maski na isang watershed lang na medyo maliit, no? Minsan paghahati-hatian yan, no? Ng 2 or more local government units, and it will be challenging to manage that, no? Because iba-iba kasi ng priorities, no? Iba-iba ng aspirations, no? Ang mga local government units. But this is where a common framework is going to be very critical, no? Because while we give it to the LGUs that they have different aspirations, there is some sort of a ceiling, there's a ceiling, the floor and ceiling and wall, within which they should be able to carry out yung kanilang development programs.
One thing I'd like to ask also is, the NAST was created by the father of our current president, right? Ferdinand Marcos Senior. NAST, the National Academy of.
Right.
And
yes.
you're the brain trust. Bakit hindi kayo ginagamit? Why are you not, consulted? Why could not the government use more of your studies, in addressing the country's problems?
That's a good question. No, I think there are cases and there are issues where NASC has been, very, very active in pursuing, like for instance in agriculture. We provide a lot of advisories to policymakers and even to agencies, but not, it's not equal. It's not equal across yung mga sectoral concerns natin. Yeah, but you're right. NAST was really created to provide policy advisories, to policymakers at the same time also to the executive agencies. So yeah, we do. Kanina nabanggit ninyo kasi nabanggit ninyo yung agencies and local government units, needing to really work together. In August 27, we're having this workshop engaging mga representatives from government agencies to explore mechanisms on how we can enhance yung harmonization and integration ng kanilang mga plans and programs. No? So hopefully, that can help us move in the right direction, to promote greater integration and harmony ng mga national government agencies, which we need in flood control. Kasi ang flood control is not only an issue, that can be addressed by DPWH. It's so far from that. It's so far from that because the DNR, plays an important role. For instance, the local government units plays an important. They play an important role in making sure that zoning are properly implemented in their area, so that people are only where they are secure, where they are safe, and that other land uses are actually done in an area that will not harm the ecosystems, So a lot of them actually falls into the lap of local government units, So it's really a whole of government approach, if I can borrow that overused term, it's that, if we do it, if we just let it, if we just keep on blaming, one agency for that, I think it's going to be very difficult to solve this. It's really us, that has to work together on this.
We do hope we have some policy makers listening to you tonight. So that we thank you so much for your time. That was Dr. Rex Victor Cruz of the NAST, the National Academy of Science and Technology. Marami pong salamat.
Thank you, Ces. Thank you, everyone.
All right, and that's all the time that we have for tonight. Thank you so much for watching The Big Story.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
We're back here tomorrow at 7:30. See you then. Have a good night.